Palestine!
Free, free!
Palestine!
Free, free!
Palestine!
Free, free!
Palestine!
Okay, thank you, Debbie Hicks. Debbie Hicks is someone I've worked closely with the last 3 years, as our rights here, just like the people in the West Bank and Gaza, have been infringed since the lockdowns and various other things that have been happening. So, what does freedom mean? Freedom means to us freedom to be who you want, freedom to go where you want, and freedom to be free from any outside influence or coercion onto our body autonomy or human rights. And let me tell you, as these basic human rights have been infringed here in the UK, this is how the people of Palestine have lived for over 75 years. I do think, however, the public need to understand the borders and the difference between the Gaza Strip and the West Bank. The Gaza Strip, as we know, is under Hamas. The West Bank is under the Palestinian Authority. So the West Bank has a wall built around it. We all know the apartheid wall. Inside that wall, there is hundreds and hundreds of checkpoints that infringe the basic rights of the Palestinians, their freedom of movement. And this is not spoke about enough on the news, about how people live in the West Bank day to day. So day to day, going about their daily lives, whether that's going to worship, going to schools, going shopping in the West Bank, they have to go through IDF military checkpoints in which they are heavily harassed, abused, and a lot of times killed at these checkpoints. So, sorry guys, I didn't actually have anything prepared today. So here, our rights have been infringed. They are passing the court's crime sentencing bill and protest bill here that is infringing our rights to protest. This means it will give the state direct powers to dictate what is and isn't hate speech. So they'll be able to sentence protesters for hate speech. We've seen this in the last few months of people waving the Palestinian flags and they've been arrested. So in the West Bank, another thing that isn't spoken about enough in the media is the prisoners. When we are arrested here in the UK, we can be held up to 92 hours at a maximum without charge. In the West Bank, the IDF forces can just pick Palestinian people up and hold them indefinitely without charge. When I travelled the West Bank, I had met people that had served 20 years in Israeli military prisons and not known what for. Another thing people also don't know is these Palestinian prisoners, the IDF and the Israeli government allow pharmaceutical industries to test pharmaceuticals on Palestinian prisoners. This is a direct correlation to what we're going through here in the UK, as they have infringed on our body autonomy and our human rights since the COVID vaccines here. Yeah. Free, free!
Palestine!
Free, free!
Palestine!
Free, free!
Palestine!
So what we have here, you may know about ULEZ in London. ULEZ is under a C40 group headed by Sadiq Khan. And what C40 is 100 mayors from 100 major cities around the world, and they plan to sculpt the world by 2030 under the guise of climate control. They want us to live, and in their own documents it says 2,500 calories to save the planet, but no one's allowed to talk about it. No one's allowed to debate it in Parliament. Scientists that I've personally worked with for the last few years are censored for it and licensed and threatened and abused and ridiculed and called conspiracy theories for. So by 2030, the group C40, headed by Sadiq Khan, they want to change what is essentially now capitalist UK into a communist technocracy. Meaning, in their own documents, they want us to live off 2,500 calories per day per person. Yeah, I think that's less than that recommended allowance for an adult man. One short-haul flight per person every 3 years. Now, Palestine hasn't got an airport, has it, guys? Palestine hasn't got a navy either. Palestine hasn't got an army. 40 grams of meat per day per person as well. So we've got to ask ourselves, how are they going to turn our society in the UK into essentially how the people in the West Bank have lived for over 75 years? And the answer to that, guys, is emergency, emergency, emergency. And under the guise of sustainability, under the guise of pandemics, hyper-wealthy elites plan to suppress our freedoms and our children's basic freedoms for the foreseeable future, unless we stand up and remove our consent to be governed by any corrupt, compromise and belligerent parliament. So, how can we expect, like Rachel McLean, she voted against a ceasefire. How can we expect our politicians here, who have ignored a catastrophic amount of excess deaths since the COVID vaccine, factually, gov data, look for yourselves, how can we expect them to stand up for the rights and abuses of the Palestinian people if they're not standing up for us? So what the bigger picture of this is, the World Economic Forum, our politicians all around the West, since 2020, they've been infiltrated, our candidates have been infiltrated by the World Economic Forum. And the World Economic Forum have a plan to how they see the world past 2030. And as I say, they're going to use emergencies and guises to create this world. So what we need to do is myself, an ex-retired police constable, Mark Sexton, the former Vice President of Pfizer, Mike Eden, ex-UB40 artist, Ricky Lambert, ex-UK footballer, England footballer, various others. We started a campaign called Do Not Consent. It's donotconsent.co.uk. So where you send in your letters to your corrupted, because trust me, our politicians are not here. Our democracies have been heavily infringed by the World Economic Forum and by the World Health Organization. I'll get to the point, and I'm trying to merge it all together here, guys, yeah? So we set up a campaign where we had thousands of letters sent to our corrupted MPs and our Prime Minister to remove our consent to be governed by any corrupt Parliament. People are under this illusion that we work for the governments, yeah? When in law, the governments are there to serve the people, yeah? And our democracies have been infringed. So, so guys, I did say I didn't have anything prepared. So yeah, we had tens of thousands sent in. Guys, I've lost my thought here. Give me a minute. Free Palestine.
Free Palestine. Free Palestine. Free Palestine. Free Palestine.
You know how hard it is trying to put the bigger picture with Gaza and the West Bank. So yes, we have more in common with the Gazans to what's going on here than people would care to believe. Checkpoints. I've mentioned checkpoints in the West Bank. The Gazans have to go through checkpoints. Here in the UK, they're creating what's called 15-minute neighbourhoods. 100 UK councils are on board with no democratic vote, no transparency, no fair debate in Parliament. These 15-minute neighbourhoods, right? You may have seen barriers going up in cities through the city centres, along with ULEZ and things like that, restricting our movement. These 15-minute neighbourhoods, if you look into them, they advertise them as a sort of utopia for the people to save the climate, to save the, against climate change and things like that. So if you look into them, it's a 15-minute walk from your house, not a drive. So they're saying you want hospitals within 15-minute walks, doctor's surgery within 15-minute walks, schools, worship centres. Hello. Battery go.
Just use that speaker. Smile, just give that.
Everybody following what I'm saying? Yeah? So the people in Gaza, the people of the West Bank, their freedom of movement is restricted. They have no airport, anything. If you go onto Google right now and you type in UK airports to close by 2030, what you will find is they plan by 2030 to leave us with 3 UK airports. How mad does that sound, right? Under the guise of, but no one's talking about this, no one's speaking about it, yeah? So under the guise of sustainability. So I've lost myself again. Debbie, where was I, darling?
You talk about the airport.
Yeah, so the airports are infringing on our rights. So basically, guys, what we need to do is remove our consent to be governed, because these politicians are not working for us. They're working for the World Economic Forum. They're working for the WHO. So we can't really expect our politicians to stand up for the children of Gaza, the people of Gaza, while simultaneously taking and stealing our human rights here. So what you need to do, www.donotconsent.co.uk, print off the letter, send it to your politicians, and say, bring the power back to the communities that are making wartime decisions. Did anybody vote for Rishi Sunak? Did anybody here in this country vote for Rishi Sunak?
No!
Yeah? So why have we got an unelected Prime Minister making wartime decisions that is going to send us back, has capabilities to send the UK back to the Middle Ages, i.e. oils coming from the Middle East. So when I'm telling you about this world they're creating by 2030, how are they going to do that? How are they going to get what is essentially a capitalist society, turn it into a communistic one, where we all live off rations, where we have 3 airports, where we live in 15-minute neighbourhoods? So I was talking about 15-minute neighbourhoods. So the idea is reach it, you have everything within a walk of your home, 15-minute. It sounds great, it sounds utopia, yeah? But it's sinister. So they're putting up, this is in common with Jenin in the West Bank, yeah? They have checkpoints all over. In these checkpoints, they have smart facial recognition cameras, yeah? So they already know exactly what the people in the West Bank are doing, how they operate, what they're doing. And this is what they plan to do here with the 15-minute neighbourhoods. Restrict our freedoms with CBDCs, digital currencies, okay? So you ask yourself 2 questions. By 2030, how are they going to police such a thing? How are they going to be able to say to us here, I know how much meat you've ate today, how much carbon you've used? Yeah, and the answer to that would be CBDC, Central Digital Bank Currency. They will know exactly how much you've spent using the new Visa and MasterCard credit cards that they're working on now that are carbon tracking, yeah? So you'll go into a shop, you'll spend, to get food on your plate or to get whatever you get from the shop, it uses a certain amount of carbon. To make it, to get it to your plate, to get it in the shop, the growing the food, the putting it and transport everything, that's a certain amount of carbon. So the Visa and MasterCard are working on carbon tracking allowance credit cards. So that's how they will police it. And I'll expect these guys in yellow, who are affected by the police, who are affected by it as well, to police it. And how are they going to turn what's essentially a capitalist society into a communistic one? And the answer to that is emergency, emergency, emergency. So we feel those at the World Economic Forum, those at the World Health Organization are purposely winding up the Middle East because, for example, Iran dictates 25% of our oil. If they shut us off, that gets us off the road, that gets people moving, that restricts our movement, inflation is another thing. The slogan of the World Economic Forum, by 2030, the people will have nothing and be happy about it. So they plan to take all our businesses, they plan to take all our human rights, and it's all under a guise. So whether you believe what I'm saying or not, you can look it up yourself, you can watch the videos back, look up everything I've said, and we have more in common with the Palestinian people and their struggle, and their apartheid system, their medical coercion, their freedom, restriction of movement, than many would care to believe. So we are all Palestinian, guys, yeah? Free, free!
Palestine!
Free, free!
Palestine!
Free, free!
Palestine!
Thank you, guys, thank you.
Thank you.